morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Now the big headline today that's plastered all over the internet is that Marc Forster is not being invited back or has decided not to come back for World War Z, the sequel. Now, I think this is probably a mutual decision. I think it had to happen considering the huge problems the first World War Z had, many of which people said were largely Marc Forster's fault. I think Marc Forster, great small film director, I think he's just not a blockbuster guy. He lucked out. I think World War Z turned out fantastically. It's actually one of my favorite films of the year. And I know a lot of you really resent the fact that it doesn't mirror the book, but then keep in mind that World War Z made over $550 million worldwide, and it is the 7th highest grossing film of the year worldwide to date. So definitely they're going to make a sequel, and I think that even though the budget was so big they probably have yet to turn a profit on it, they of course should make another one because hopefully they'll get their spending under control for that sequel. But when you have someone mess up so royally as Forster did, and he also dropped the ball with Quantum of Solace, which he and his team and the whole Bond team had actually been blaming on the writer's strike at that time. But I think as you're seeing with World War Z, there were deeper problems than that besides the script with Quantum of Solace. So when you have two huge strikes like that, I think it's just a safe bet to go and find somebody else for the sequel. Now, that being said, I hope they find somebody who keeps the kind of documentary, Steven Soderbergh-y kind of feel that World War Z had, which was one of my favorite elements of the film. I really liked the kind of travelogue. It had almost like a Bourne Identity, Homeland kind of feel. So if they can get somebody like that to take on the sequel, I would think that would be great. I would say find a Homeland director, just like they have a Game of Thrones director on Thor, but I'm so disappointed with the 3rd season so far of Homeland. I don't know if Homeland will stay as popular as it has and might not have that cachet that you want to bring onto your project. But I'm very happy to see that a World War Z sequel is going forward. I was not familiar with the book, so I was able to not get upset about that. I mean, I know how that goes. You know, I get upset about some things too. When you're a fan of something, you're a fan. But I think that World War Z was a hit with the mainstream audience, with the global audience, and I'm excited to see a sequel and what they do with it. And I hope that they don't just clean the slate, as I said. I think the first film made a lot of money for a reason. It succeeded. I saw it twice. I mean, once was for a press screening, but I did pay to see it again, and I'm glad that I did. So it's not broke. It just needs to be cheaper and in better hands. All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story I just find fascinating, and that is that Wall Street has downgraded IMAX's stock. And the reason they're doing so is not only because there have been disappointing IMAX films this year, such as Elysium, Pacific Rim, and Riddick, which didn't perform as well as had anticipated, but also they are downgrading it because they are predicting that fanboys, they said, that's the headline that's going around, that fanboys will be disappointed with 2014 slate of IMAX movies. Now, right now, those are slated to be I, Frankenstein, Robocop, the remake, 300 Rise of an Empire, Godzilla, Edge of Tomorrow, and Transformers 4, Age of Extinction. So Wall Street already is calling those as disappointments. I find that shocking, that the movie industry has changed to such a degree and is so much more about anticipation than results and than actual product. The anticipation is the current currency of Hollywood, that you can it's actually having financial effects on the industry. Now, IMAX is saying that sure, they have had some problems, but they're hoping to rebound with the Hunger Games Mockingjay and IMAX, but also The Hobbit. I think it's fascinating they didn't mention Ender's Game and some of the other IMAX films they have coming out this year. Not a lot left, but I think that Ender's Game is looking less and less like a hit at this point. And I'm sure The Hobbit will make a lot of money, and I'm sure Hunger Games will. The question is, while I think you need to see The Hobbit on an IMAX screen, I don't really know if you need to see The Hunger Games on an IMAX screen. I believe they're saying that when Katniss is in the arena, it will switch to the IMAX screen format, the bigger size. But, I don't like it when a movie actually goes back and forth between size. I like my movie to be one size throughout. And also, some other people have been bringing up an interesting problem in the message section on these articles, in the comment section, that IMAX has a problem in that a lot of their theaters aren't true IMAX theaters. IMAX has kind of gone around making just baby IMAXs, and Aziz Ansari famously came out against it. And I'm actually on the same page with Aziz Ansari. I only feel IMAX is worth the money when you go and get that huge screen, that five stories tall screen. There's one here in New York City on 68th and Broadway, and it's actually the only true IMAX screen, I believe, in New York City, even though other theaters say they have an IMAX screen. That is just not the case. So anyway, so IMAX might be shooting themselves in the foot a little bit there as well. But as I said, the fact that Wall Street is now gauging potential disappointment and looking at things like fan anticipation just shows you how the industry is changing. And I think, I wonder how far along this path we're going to go until it just completely, Hollywood just gets completely burned. Because I think that when you're dealing with anticipation, when your movies are so, your whole business is so based on anticipation, when you don't deliver, as Hollywood isn't delivering, I mean, this is a very disappointing summer. Some of you have noted that there isn't a single film since the Avengers, and even there, I think there are the naysayers, that everybody can unanimously agree was a good film. And that's a problem for Hollywood. They have to get a big surefire hit out there, or they're going to continue to lose business. But there are other problems as well. As I've been saying, I think the price is a problem, and I also think that theaters are a problem. I think they're dirty, I think people are noisy, and they're just not a lot of fun to be in sometimes, and that's another huge problem. But Hollywood, they have a lot of leaks in the boat, and they genuinely have to fix them. They have to stop just patching them up because it's not working. There's no quick fix here. It's Disney. Hollywood. Oh, how Freudian! I said Disney because they're producing most of the big hits these days. But Hollywood in general really needs to take a hard look at itself, make some difficult decisions, and fix everything from their advertising company, their advertising people, who I think are messing up a lot of movies, to their development executives, to just every level, and movie theaters as well, movie chains. So that's the second story of the day. The third story is that Fargo is going to become a TV series. It's going to be on FX. It's produced by the Coen brothers, but not written by them. And it's going to be basically another true crime story told in the snowy tundra of Minnesota or such. Now, I think it's interesting that Frances McDormand was the star of the film and won an Oscar for her portrayal. She did a great job. But there isn't going to be a lead female character or they haven't announced any female characters yet for the show. Now, obviously, I have a problem with that, and I think it's unfortunate to see another great vehicle for an actress go to an actor, especially because the role that Frances McDormand played was such a great character role, and those are so rare for women, for actresses to have come along. So that's a little disappointing. However, I guess you don't want an actress trying to do a Frances McDormand impression either. Instead, that job will go to Colin Hanks, who will be the star of the film as their police officer, of the series as their police officer. It's going to be a mini-series. I believe they said about 10 parts. But it will also star in the Steve Buscemi role will be Billy Bob Thornton. Now, for those of you who've seen Fargo, I don't know how that's going to work exactly, but you'll have Billy Bob Thornton taking over for Steve Buscemi. Very interesting casting. Of course, Steve Buscemi has famously gone to television quite successfully, or semi-successfully, but for him, I think quite successfully with Boardwalk Empire. And then also rounding out the cast will be Martin Freeman. And Martin Freeman being on this show is what made me decide to cover it. Now, of course, Martin Freeman started out in the UK on TV, in The Office. He's, of course, right now in Sherlock as Watson. He's really good there. And he's been trying to make it in film. He's in The World's Finest this summer. I think he was very good in that movie, although it's clearly Simon Pegg and Nick Frost's film, but he's in that film. And he's done a couple other things that he's tried to do, but they haven't really succeeded. And of course, obviously, he is Bilbo Baggins. He is the Hobbit. But while he's in those films, he really has no other film projects lined up. Hollywood and American audiences, on the big screen at least, just haven't taken to him. Even though he does have his cult fan base, and of course his fans from his television work on the BBC, he's just not working. Mainstream America is not in love with Martin Freeman, at least not yet. So I think it's a smart move actually for him to go to FX's Fargo, to go to television, because he's done so well there in the UK. But it's kind of interesting to see an actor try to go for the brass ring, although some would argue that television is today's brass ring when you see people doing so well, like Bryan Cranston and such. But of course, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be a movie star. Everybody wants to be in the movies. Even Cranston's trying to transition into there. But it's interesting to see an actor like Freeman not be able to really make it. I mean, the door's never totally closed, but I think he's being very smart. He's circling back to television. It's a business decision. I think it probably is the right one, as I'm saying. But it's unfortunate, and it's a matter of the business, but it's just a good example of, someone having to, change up their game plan because it's not working. So those are the three stories of the day. Now on to the viewer question. The viewer question is from Philip Niblet. And he asks, Grace, what animated TV show would you like turned into a movie? And also, would you like it as an animated movie, or would you like it as a live action movie? His pick is Samurai Jack because he thinks it would work both ways. I picked this because I definitely have an answer. The Legend of Korra, or Avatar: The Last Airbender. Basically that universe, the Airbender Avatar universe. I would love to see that as a movie. And as with you, Philip, with Samurai Jack, I would be happy if it was an animated movie, like adult animation, kind of like they do out of Japan anime. I guess not in that style, but at that level of sophistication and storytelling. Or I would love to see an adult live action series. It is such a travesty that M. Night Shyamalan put such a bad scar on the Avatar franchise. It's hard to say Avatar. It's called Avatar. That's a big character in it. It's the lead character is the Avatar, but because of James Cameron's movies, it's really hard to keep referencing it that way. I feel it's going to be confusing. But I feel that, M. Night Shyamalan had a chance to introduce such a phenomenal concept and show to a whole new, wider audience, and instead, I think he gave it a bad reputation with that audience. So I would really love at a certain point, and maybe animation is the way to go because people maybe wouldn't be willing to give a live-action film another chance, but I just feel I would love to see this on the big screen. I would love to see, and largely, because it's already good where it is. I mean, I have problems with the second season of The Legend of Korra, but I feel it's already a good show as it is. The quality is already there for all intents and purposes. So I would really love to be able to introduce it to a wider audience that would never watch an animated show on Nickelodeon. So I feel if we could get it on the big screen, although that's always hard to do. I mean, Batman the Mask of the Phantasm is a fantastic animated movie from Batman the Animated Series, and that just completely tanked at the box office because it really wasn't, I think, people didn't want to take their children to see it because they didn't feel it was a children's film, but yet a lot of adults didn't want to go see an adult animated movie. So that's an instance where it didn't work. But maybe in today when we have more of a worldwide movie-going audience and animation does do quite well worldwide, it could work. So Legend of Korra, hands down. All right, that's today's morning movie news. Thank you for tuning in. Please write down below any questions you might have. I think the question format we've been using works great, so write question first. And also any stories you'd like to see covered on Monday. Thanks for watching. Bye.